Good day, good evening, and happy and healthy COVID-19 well, let's say call it transformation. We're going to call it a transition. We're going to call it a progress of a journey, ladies and gentlemen. So we're obviously recording this here in the month of April 2020. It may not air in April, may not air until May. We shall see. But I just want to give shout outs to everybody who's working hard through this, not becoming a negative Nancy, staying on the positive, staying on that life-changing positive mindset. That's what we all need to be doing. So even if down the road COVID makes its way through and we've moved on, let's remind ourselves of this, that we have a choice in what our mindset is. We have a choice in how we act day in and day out. And I'm going to tie this together into our podcast today. So I'm obviously bringing on, yet another new and exciting guest co-host. She's joining me from a totally different time zone. We'll have fun with that in a second. But let me give you a quick background on this. She's battled low self-esteem in her younger years. She suffered at the hands of an emotionally abusive husband in that time. She's refused to allow her trauma to actually dictate her future. So she's saying, again, guys, pause, positive mindset, people. She's now teaches the other people that these methods that she's acquired over the years and she's figured out in this transformational process, and she's used this to rebuild her life, and she's bringing them fulfillment and helping them to fall in love with themselves again, which I think self-love is important. We've actually had a few other guest co-hosts bring this up on the show. And one of her taglines on her site, which we'll do some screen sharing tonight for the listeners, we do this on YouTube and Facebook, is she's all about helping you heal and, keyword here, thrive after abuse. So without further ado, welcome to the show, our new guest co-host. We're going to have some fun two-way conversation tonight. Sarah Griffiths, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Now let's pause and because I hinted about the time zone.
Yes.
So help people understand this. I am talking into the future, correct?
Yes. So
yes, because it is tomorrow for you.
I'm in Western Australia and it is just gone 6 o'clock on Saturday morning.
There we go. So, and right now it is 6:14 p.m. here on the East Coast of USA. So you're literally a half a day ahead of me, mathematically. Everybody's doing selfie videos, Facebook Lives, and probably everything else in the world to really beat down the internet bandwidth. So anyway, as I was asking, I wanted to find out for you, the listeners, why Sarah has gotten into the podcast world and also is starting some of her own side projects. So Sarah, what are your thoughts on this?
I started going on more podcasting, and also I'm starting my own.
There it is. That's what I like to hear. Somebody's new own show. Yes.
Yeah. Exciting new project. So it's such a great way to get an important message out there. It's a very easy way to reach lots of people. And I just find when I'm on podcasts, it's so interesting because every host, every audience, they want something different. And you get to say things in different ways, and I just get to meet such great people as well. But I do love the varied experience of meeting the different podcast hosts.
I like your point just now on meeting different types of people. And I want to pause on that because obviously, as I hinted, we're recording this during the midst of the whole COVID thing. You yourself have been like self-quarantining. There's been a lot of things going on. And since I'm the tech guy, I run sales and marketing for a lot of companies. I teach people like, guys, like this is totally, I hate to say it, a first world benefit / first world problem, because we could still be reaching out. We could still be connecting with people. We could still be publishing and putting out the positive stuff, the content the world needs. There's enough negative stuff out there. So like you coming on today, like you just came off, or you're still in, I'll let you clarify in a second, the whole self-quarantine thing. But again, this is digital. We're fine. You're not spreading anything. There's no risk, but you still have a verbal message to share.
Yeah, that doesn't change, does it?
No. But aren't some people afraid to get out there? I mean, let's get transparent here. I know I was a little bit. I was a voracious consumer of podcasts and audiobooks. And then I was like, oh man, I don't know. Do I launch my own show? Do I
Mm-hmm.
not? Ooh, what do I do? What happened for you on that one?
I just got to the point because it was a part of my business growth.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually had, well, you know yourself that once we start down this road of growth and personal development and self-actualization, it doesn't stop. You don't get to the point where you suddenly go, oh, I'm over that now, or I've healed that, or I've stopped that horrible behavior. You become a different person within that space, but then you're on to the next thing. It's infinite. It doesn't stop.
It doesn't. It
And
to sometimes an annoyance because you're like, oh my God, what did I get myself into?
absolutely. You just, you've opened the floodgates. You can't stop. And everyone warned you about that in the beginning. So at the end of last year, I had this massive aha moment about my business that I was fully booked one-on-one, really busy, all these great clients, great results and everything. And then I had this aha moment that it wasn't just about doing the therapy with the clients, that I had an obligation, a responsibility to spread this message about an alternative form of therapy that works so much faster, and to just draw attention and to make some noise about the change that was going on or should be going on within the approach to mental health. And once I'd had that thought, it's like once you know something, you can't unknow it. So ever since then, I've been thinking, okay, how do I do this? How do I get this message out there? And the podcast idea came to me, and I just thought, yeah, that is a great way. I've, as you say, we've got to April now. I've been ignoring it for a few months, thinking that just looks like such a lot of work. There's a lot to do, and it's been in my mind.
But is it? I don't
I'll
know.
find out, won't I?
Yeah. There we go. Because you don't know yet. I mean, that's why it's exciting. That's why I'm having fun with this with you, because I'm like, oh, she's about to step into that world that I
Yeah.
did so long ago. And there's some hacks to that. And obviously reach out to me. And obviously I honor all my guest co-hosts because you're helping share the mic with me and our listeners today. And, you know, we don't advertise on the show for that reason. I want to keep it pure. I want to keep the content real. It's not being powered by anybody else but our listeners. And yeah, to be real. Yeah, nowadays, almost 4 years into it, yeah, I have a VA now just helping with that because I'm not necessarily officially generating income off my podcast. I've acquired a couple of clients because of it, which I always thought like, oh, that'd be cool if that happened, because everybody's like, oh, well, how do you monetize your show? And I'm like, if you're getting into this game just to monetize, you have the wrong idea.
Yeah.
And I have no problem being a purist on that because, and I want to tie this back to you. When you and I talked the other night, I had no idea, well, other night / other morning for you. I had no idea that you and I were going to connect so well because for my regular listeners, shout out to Debbie. She's a colleague and a friend, thanks to some mutual clients who we've been trying to free her of domestic violence. And this was right before the whole Corona COVID thing, before the lockdowns happened, everything. And we were just trying to raise her $7,300 on a GoFundMe campaign. And that was really, I asked her, like, what do you need? What do you need to free yourself of your abusive husband? What do you need to just start fresh? And she was like, 7,300. I'm like, that's it? Like, I've run GoFundMe campaigns and Kickstarters for my clients, and recently a movie that we crowdfunded, and we're like, really? I raised hundreds of thousands of dollars. You need $7,300 to start your life over? That doesn't seem unrealistic. Now, granted, unfortunately, thanks to Corona and everything else, we're a little bit paused right now. We're just over 5,000 of the $7,300 goal. So for my regular listeners, I have to give that a plug. If you want to learn more about Debbie's predicament, visit bit.ly/free Debbie, DEBBIE, because that'll give you the GoFundMe campaign we have for her. And let me tell you, the money we raised already, she's already hired a lawyer. She's met with a lawyer. She's laid the groundwork. But then Corona COVID steps in and they're on lockdown. So she's stuck in her current living situation, Sarah, with the guy who abuses her, not physically, but emotionally, psychologically, on a daily basis, because he's an alcoholic, he's a drunk, and clearly somebody that if I ever met in a real world, I might put through a wall. Sorry, can't help it. What are your thoughts, Sarah? Why am I bringing all this up? Because this totally connects, obviously, to something you're very passionate about.
Yeah, well, I mean, the work that I do, I don't think we've told the listeners yet what I do, but
nope. I try to
so
set the stage for you.
Okay, so I'm a very specialized trauma and abuse therapist. And you're right, I have from my own experience plus my professional learning, I have developed an incredibly unique methodology that helps people get very fast results in overcoming the emotional impact of abuse. And it is horrific. It totally diminishes a person, undermines them to the degree where they are literally quite paralyzed, and just feel like they can't do anything in their life. And my link to Debbie, of course, is not only an understanding of what she's going through and why, but I've had this in my own marriage. So the work I do, I'm a product of my own experiences. And one of the very interesting thing is that as Corona broke, I'd actually started my own 5-month journey. I was supposed to be abroad, putting to the test, can I work and travel? Because my work is virtual, all my sessions are online, can I work and travel? And coronavirus obviously cut that short, and I've had to come back to my home in Western Australia and the emotionally abusive relationship that I had left. Now, in fairness, I'm not in Debbie's situation, because my husband, probably because of the work I do as well, he is working on himself. He's doing work on this.
I love this. Let's pause on this.
Yeah.
People underestimate the power of self-work. I was so looking forward to this show because this ties together with so many things. Like, I'm actually an asshole. I'll throw it out there because I love my wife. Like, I'm a bit of a dick sometimes, and I have no problem telling people now on my show, thanks to the power of podcasting, I'm completely transparent. Like, I didn't tell you this. My wife broke up with me just before the 1-year anniversary of dating. And this was only a few years ago. Like, she calls me the old man because I'm 42. And I'm like, really? But she's 5 years younger. But I love sharing this because of what you just said. Is I didn't realize from my couple of years of firefighting and before that, I was an uptight corporate guy. I was just driven, blinders on, no room for romance. So I never had that opportunity of growth in my personal self.
Right.
And then it took, obviously, why I decided to propose and marry her, my wife, to break up with me, but awaken that. And I was in my late 30s at that point, like 37, 38. And I was like, whoa, why is this upsetting me so much? Why did this shake me? I was never fazed by this. And I realized, like, one, you've been doing a lot of dumb crap for a long time. Now, granted, I've never been abusive, but I was not allowing her access to my heart. I was in the walls are up, blah, blah, blah. So because I studied psychology in college, I can thank this. I tell people, and my degree is in marketing and psychology. I can thank the psychology. I tell people all the time, like, everything I do now professionally that I teach people does not come from my degree. If you think you want to hire me because I have a BS in marketing, great. You're reading print that means nothing. But I do appreciate the sciences that I acquired from that. Philosophy and psychology were very, very impacting on me. But back to you, Sarah. That's why I'm sharing this, because, like, my wife's like, you're an asshole. You're uptight. You're not unlocking yourself. And I've been there, done that for 9 years with her prior relationship. She's like, I'm ready to move on. So, like, 3 months went by, but here's the difference. Thanks to my self-work and my business, professional development, everything else, where I had reached in my life, I paused and I was like, whoa, did I even give her and I a chance? One. Mm-hmm. 2, is it her fault, my fault, or both? And then 3, I've spent all this money on professional development, right? Attending conferences, sales, coaching, marketing, all this stuff, audiobooks, launched a podcast and all this stuff. And I was like, you've done no self-work, like personal self-work. So for the next 90 days, the 3 months, that's why I didn't really, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not trying to distract the podcast here. This is for Sarah's benefit too. I didn't realize we were going to go here. Dude, I was buying like text your ex back programs off the internet and like all this weird hack stuff, trying to figure it out. And I bought the crap. I watched all the videos, read all the junk, these private blogs. And then I realized I wasted a bunch of money, one, but two, it actually awakened in myself, like you've been ignoring all of these personal issues in your life, right? You closed off friends, family, you protected yourself while you were firefighting, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, dude, I'm an adrenaline junkie. And here was my one quote that I love using to this day. I'm intrigued to hear your feedback. I'll hand the mic back to you. But I was like, holy crap, Scott, you skydived. You've served as one of the world's most dangerous firefighters in the world, as a wildland firefighter. I've done a lot of crazy stuff. And yet, I never risked my heart.
Ah.
And that was my quote. So that hit my brain like an explosion years ago. And again, my wife and I have been together for maybe 6 years. We've been married as of this St. Patrick's Day, 2021 year. So we're very fresh, but that was my epiphany. It took her to pull my head literally out of my ass. And I say this all the time because I have no problem. My head's in my butt a lot. People need to be more real about their problems. But I was like, oh my God, I did not risk my heart. Like I was always bragging about this skydive, this mountain biking race, this crazy wildfire we were on, all this adrenaline junkie tough guy crap. And then I realized, wait a minute, there was no vulnerability. It was all adrenaline junkie, no vulnerability. And then my wife and a few other girls I met, probably like you, were like, do you realize how hot vulnerability is? And I was like, what? That's a thing? And they're like, yeah, your head is really far up your ass. So there's a giant platter, Sarah, for you of me, your co-host tonight. I figured you would enjoy that. So
what am I supposed to do with all of that? Goodness,
I don't know.
me.
I'm here to challenge you as a professional.
But what it does highlight, you see, people just think people look at what's going on in their lives, their relationships, and the things that are so difficult for them. And the answer is self. It is always, always about you. Always. Now, even when I look at my relationship with my husband now, it's about 4 years ago that we started to explore. I started to explore his narcissism.
I was going to pause on that. Did you trigger that or him? Okay.
I know I triggered it. We've been working on it together for a couple of years. I've been working on it for longer. Because I got to the point where people describe it and I completely understand. I was broken. I felt broken. I felt as if I had nothing else to give. It was just the whole relationship, my whole life, everything was so hard. And I couldn't work out
So he had drained you, or you drained yourself? Or which one is that?
He had drained me of all of my resources, all of my energy of trying to make this work, trying to be good enough, trying to get him to see me, to hear me, to love me, to appreciate me. So he drained me of all of that. And that is emotionally and physically draining. But what it does as well, it drains you. Well, my sense of self was already damaged from my past. And I realized that this was just feeding into that. This was just confirming everything I thought I already knew about myself. And the important thing is that I went to see a therapist, this is about 4 years ago now, who listened to me for a very long time and was the first person to suggest that aside from my issues with my past, which I hadn't then dealt with, I was probably dealing with a narcissist.
And
That was,
that's how you and I had an amazing epiphany the other night with Free Debbie, because
yeah.
I had brought up the term gaslighting, and
Oh, yes.
I thought, because Debbie's from Louisiana, I thought it was like this weird, like New Orleans, whatever, French influenced, New Orleans,
Yes.
like Louisiana thing. And then I Googled it while I was launching the GoFundMe campaign, thinking that it was an important definition. And boom, like my light bulb went off. I was like, oh my God, I had no idea this was
Yeah.
directly tied to one of the most dangerous psychological traits in mankind. And I have no problem emphasizing that. You can correct me, but I'm going to emphasize it. Like, narcissism can be quite debilitating, negative across the board. And I was like, oh my God, I had no idea that was a direct connection.
Well, yeah, not just that it can be, but if you really get involved with someone who is a narcissist, you have to remember that what defines them is a lack of empathy, a lack of understanding. So for most of us, if we do something that hurts someone, we all have selfish traits. Let's say that we all
It's
looking
true.
for something for ourselves some of the time, and
And
sometimes
it's
we'll
not
choose
a bad thing, right? It's
no,
okay from
no,
time to time to put
yeah.
yourself first.
Absolutely. Well, and also, I mean, it's always okay to put yourself first when you are in a certain place, when you are coming from a motivation of where you are in a great place, but where you are caring and considerate of the other people in your life. And you actually get to a very, very balanced place where people know and respect your boundaries and barriers, and you're just living in this lovely flow of harmony and giving and balance and receiving. And then it's okay to put yourself first, because you're always considering other people, but within your boundaries and your barriers. And
Okay.
everyone knows what they are. So it feels right to everyone. And believe me, you can get to there. But with narcissism, the other person, they don't have these stopgaps. They don't have this, now I've gone too far, now I've really hurt that person, oh my goodness, how do I fix this? All they have is a take, and they have no comprehension at all of the hurt and the damage that they are doing along the way. My husband is better than he was, but is still capable of doing things that just leave me absolutely speechless. And
So can we
minutes
pause on
later,
that?
yep.
I mean, it's because that's what I'm hearing is there's some frustration. And obviously, I am not the counselor, consultant, blah, blah, blah. I'm just hearing it and I'm feeling it. And I'm sure there's other people that are hearing this and probably have seen it or felt it themselves. And maybe they didn't realize it. And that's something that I learned from Debbie is she's like, she 12 years. Like, this got worse over 12 years. This was not her first husband. It was her second husband. But over 12 years, it steadily got worse. And it's like, wow. Okay. I mean, so people don't realize that, yes, it's fine to put yourself first, which narcissists definitely do. But the gaslighting thing that I learned from her that you also emphasized to me the other night was that is literally, how do I word it, negatively impacting social programming. Like, they're literally programming you to make you feel, because they have zero empathy. You are correct. There's no empathy whatsoever. So it doesn't even hit their brain. It's like, it doesn't even register. And then, so from that, they then go right to making you think that you're the one at fault for everything.
Yeah. And
that's
not
what I learned
just
from Debbie.
Yeah. The number one, that you are wrong, but that you are guilty.
Yeah. Like, even though that dude or woman, there's female narcissists too, right? But like, even though they knew they screwed up, they don't know they screwed up because they think they don't do anything wrong and they have no empathy. So it's automatically your fault. And they're going to program as much as possible to make you think it's your fault.
Yeah. So can I draw? I wouldn't normally do this. I mean, I
Do
stay
it.
away
Come on,
from
girl.
politics, but yeah, do you have a certain president, and almost every sentence he says does that?
Oh yeah. Oh no, come on. We all make fun of it over here. I mean, it's sad that we have to make a joke out of it, but it's okay. Yeah. Dude, the guy's a total narcissist. Come on.
Every word that comes out of his mouth is deflecting from himself. He even, if you watch things, even from day to day, he will totally change his story and not even know that he's done it.
And we
And
don't get
yeah.
political on this show. I think it's important to
Sorry.
identify that. No, it's fine. I like where you went with this because there's no apologies here. It's a natural flow. Come on. What I'm going with here is triggering it back to the psychology. It's understanding, and this show didn't really necessarily predict it to becoming an awareness thing, but let's tie that back to Debbie and also you and other people out there. Okay. Clearly you get this, you understand this, and you love working with people. We're going to do some more sharing about that. But I think the biggest awakening I'm getting right now is the awareness component. I don't want to undervalue that. A lot of people don't understand that there's people in your life right now that possibly are doing these things.
Yeah.
But it comes across so smoothly that you've never been, I guess, awakened to it because it hasn't gotten that bad yet, maybe? I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Does it have to get bad to get awaken people, or do people become awakened in other ways too?
Well, there's various things to do with that, because it can also, you have to remember, it becomes familiar.
Oh.
It becomes familiar, or it may already be familiar. Because we get drawn to the familiar. So often people are in relationships that are just repeating a childhood pattern. And it's so familiar that they don't know anything else. This is what they have learned to expect. It's what they saw. It's what was modeled to them. But also people who are drawn to narcissists, like myself, repeating. And I wasn't repeating a narcissistic pattern. I don't want to put that on my parents, but I was definitely drawn to it because I was used to being...
I'll put it on my parents. Does that make you feel any better? Like, my dad was never wrong. I mean, yeah, come on.
Yeah, I can't, I don't. And
I love
can't
my dad. I do. He softened much later in his later years now, but I'm like, come on, Dad. You never did anything wrong. Come on. And
I totally understand them. The clients that I tend to have these days, they're products of their of their childhoods, and on the whole, they were emotionally and sometimes physically and sexually abusive. But emotionally, where they were, as you say, they had parents who could not be wrong. Now, as a child, that teaches you that you can't be right.
Very good point, right? Like, you feel like you're always making mistakes. You feel like you're always, maybe a failure, right? That's got to be psychologically debilitating.
As a child, you don't, when you are in this situation, you're not thinking, oh, well, they're my parents, they're adults, and when I'm an adult, I'll be able to think for myself and say what I want. And no, you get undermined, you get diminished, you get closed down, depending on how it's done. But when it's done in a very controlling, domineering, narcissistic, real putting down way, where children they're called names, and they have the most horrible things said about them, and they take it on board. It becomes their childhood blueprint. They think they have no value, no worth. They have no way to express themselves. It shows up in so many ways, and then they go on, because they have this low sense of themselves, literally. No sense of themselves, they repeat that pattern. And you find people in narcissistic relationships have some kind of emotional abuse in their background.
Yeah, I will say, I thought definitely much more about this after you and I had our first chat, because this is not the first time we've talked about this on this show. We've all hit it probably in different ways. I liked your background because, unfortunately, you've had a personal connection to this. And I think that probably adds, because I'm a marketing guy, I can't help it, that adds to your validity and your branding. And I think it's important that you do. I'm glad that you do put that out there. So kudos to you, because a lot of people are afraid. They're concerned about being too true and too transparent. And I've always reminded people, when it comes to a branding or marketing or a business standpoint, the more true and transparent you can be, the more attracting you are, the more real you are. I've learned that over the years, and I've been in the business world for a long time. And I've had to learn this myself. It's like, oh, okay, wait a minute. I could be real and be myself and attract the right people and not deal with any more of these fake people.
Yeah.
So this totally applies to our personal lives and our professional lives, right?
But you see, what society teaches us is this model of perfection. You know, that we have to be perfect. And
do you not like the word perfection? Because I'm trying to push that in my vocabulary. I've been trying for years. Like I now use the word. I hate using the word hate. What do you think, Sarah? But I'm like, I hate the word perfection.
Yes, so do I. Because
Awesome.
it's very damaging. It's very damaging because it doesn't exist.
Thank you.
You would not believe how many clients I have simply because in their childhood, they were taught that they needed to be perfect. They were trying to be lovable. They were trying to achieve the love that they needed or get the love they needed from their parents by being exactly what their parents needed. And when they had narcissistic parents, it wasn't possible. And it teaches us, number one, it teaches us something warped about love, that we can only be loved when we are exactly what someone else needs, which again undermines and diminishes ourselves. And it just buys into this whole idea that you're not good enough. But this comes to when you're trying to be open and raw and real and vulnerable, like I do, like I'm really honest about what has happened. But you have to totally put aside a fear of being judged, because some people will judge you. Absolutely.
Oh, sure. That's inevitable.
Yeah. But again, this idea that you have to put yourself out there and say, hey, I'm not perfect, and encourage other people to do the same. And it was, you just said about you will attract the right people. And that's really important to understand as well, because there is going to be a backlash, like this whole narcissism.
Oh yeah,
thing.
you're gonna rip your world apart.
Yeah,
I mean,
people don't like it. When my husband and we did it jointly. I never told anyone about my husband's behavior. Not only my close friends. So my close friends have known for a few years, but I never told any of his friends, because you have to remember, narcissists don't do this in front of other people.
oh
That's
no,
the
it's totally
amazing thing.
private. Yeah.
Yeah, people just would never. So it's always a surprise.
Yeah, they polish the exterior and destroy their interior is the way I put it.
They polish it even to the degree that they shine. They're on a pedestal. Normally, they've got an amazing talent that people respect and admire. My husband's a fantastic musician. He's a great golfer. You know, people love him. People love him. They're kind of drawn to him. So when we did this, we did a couple of videos at his suggestion, because he said he wanted to help men who wanted to change.
Yeah.
He hasn't done much with that. But then there's a huge backlash from his friends and his family.
They think it's probably you affecting him.
They think it's me.
Yeah.
They think that somehow I have made him do this.
Yeah, like,
that I'm parading him, that I'm showing him up. It was bizarre. It was absolutely.
I'll be a face for that. I've never been that. As like I gave you some of my backstory. I tell people like I'm not trying to make I'm not that bad. I'm just saying that I'm not trying to make it a tiering system or anything. But it's like, guys, either way, whether you're here, I don't care where you're at in the narcissistic scale. The most important thing you do, and I learned this from another great mentor, is that listen, if you're naturally a narcissist, it's not the end of the world. I'm not trying to just destroy somebody who might I take it as a compliment now. I'm like, if people think I have a little bit of a narcissistic trait, I'm like, actually, from all the studying I've done, you can channel that from very, very strong professional skill sets, as long as you are willing to stay personally aware and accountable for the negative side effects of that and work on that. If you choose to ignore that and be a complete asshole, you get what you deserve. I'm sorry. And that's where I have no problem putting myself in that position. Like, okay, I was willing to do the self-work. Your husband has started doing some of the self-work. And I think that's important to kind of rewind back to earlier in the show when you brought that up, is that now free Debbie, right? We want to remove Debbie from the situation. This guy thinks he's done nothing wrong. He's an alcoholic.
Absolutely. Yeah.
She's in her 60s. She needs to get out of there. So, yeah.
And obviously my husband did that for a very long time.
Hmm.
You know, it's only probably the last, maybe the last 8 months. I mean, I'm saying we've been looking at this for a couple of years. That's when I first broached with him.
Okay.
When I'd spoken to about 4 different therapists who'd said to me, oh, look, you know, whether it's diagnosed or not, there's some very strong traits here. You're dealing with narcissism. So he's working on that, but it's not easy. And he doesn't always see himself. And here's the really important thing. He did not see it at all until he did a hypnotherapy session with me.
Yeah, and that's a big part of your brand, obviously, is that
yeah.
I think that's one of your biggest awakenings. I was going to screen share again as we approach towards the end of the show here, is that I thought it was more important today to give people more of the backstory, give people more of like, I want to make sure people can connect with you. They know that you're real, right? Anybody can go to Sally G. That's right. People listening to Sally G, the letter G.com. And right now I'm screen sharing your resources section on your site. But you have right here, you outline why you have a lot of hypnosis and hypnotherapy Q&A. So go ahead. You were saying about how you kind of awakened your husband.
Yeah, so it was very interesting. So the work that he's doing, it's not, you have to understand with narcissism that it's only 1% of people with, let's say they're high on the scale, on an 8 to 10. 8 to 10. There are kind of 10 main traits of narcissism. And once someone's got about 8 of them, especially the lack of empathy. So there's very, very few narcissists that are ever going to understand that they are hurting people and to want to change, because it's all about self. They just can't see it. So my husband, it didn't start with him looking at me and saying, oh my goodness, I'm making my wife really unhappy. I need to do something about that. All that had just gone completely over his head forever. He had no concept of it. Even if we tried to talk about it, it would just water off a duck's back. And one day he said to me, can you do a session with me? Because I want to understand why I'm so unhappy. So it was about
interesting.
him. Yeah. Why am I so unhappy? So I did this session with him, and what we uncovered was, it was really amazing. We uncovered this feeling that he didn't deserve to be happy. And then we looked at where that came from, what that was about.
That's interesting, because I've heard that statement many times over the only actually the past 5 years, I think, because I have advanced to more of I'm working with a lot more high-end professional people now. And I learned that in the past 5 years that a lot of the top high performers are because of that exact reason, the way they were brought up. Back to your point on childhood. Is that nothing was ever good enough. Yeah.
And therefore you don't deserve. This feeling of not deserving, it runs through such a high proportion of my clients, but they don't know it's there. They don't know what it is that is stopping them. That I will have people come to me and say, I've got all this success, but I can't enjoy it. Or I can't develop, I can't. Why am I not happy? Why can't I enjoy? Why do I feel so guilty about having what I've got? And it's this sense of not deserving that we uncover in the hypnosis. They don't know it's there. Like my husband. But that was a huge thing for him, because when he started to process that, he said, well, I actually feel like I don't deserve to be happy. And if I don't deserve to be happy, you don't either. Wow. And it was the start of this whole other, where is this behavior coming from? And this whole realization that it was about what he felt he deserved, why he felt that, where it came from, how it was translating into his life, how it was affecting his relationship with me. It was huge. But obviously from there then, he's got to do the work. The realization is one thing, but then he's got all these ingrained behavior patterns that he has to not just do something about, but recognize and uncover and then do something about. Yeah. And this is hard. There's a reason it's called doing the work. doing the inner work.
I was
It's
gonna
hard.
say, like, I
It's work.
literally, you probably watched my head tilt down. I'm literally here. I keep a notepad. I'm old school. I keep a notepad during my shows because if something truly stands out to me, I want to make sure I note it. And I literally just wrote awareness dash, as you were saying it, do the work. I was already thinking do the work as you said it. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, dude, I just connected hardcore because I've learned that. And I have an unfair advantage. And even then, I remind people, like, guys, like, I'm still doing the work. Like what I mentioned earlier with my wife and everything else. Like, guys, we just passed 1 year wedding anniversary. The work never stops. Anything,
Mhm.
let me pause on this. Personal, professional. I care about health, business, and lifestyle on the show. Actually, this is a great timing because we are coming to the end of the show. I have to get on another show. But Sarah, like, something I'm truly passionate about. My tagline for this show is we fuel your health, business, and lifestyle, right? Well, I'm sorry. Anything, here's where I'm going with this. Anything worth having, anything worth achieving, and anything worth truly enjoying comes with doing the work, hard work. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, there's a saying, isn't there, that we are all a work in progress.
Ah, I like that. Nice transition.
Yeah,
Yes.
we're
And the
all a
work
work
in
in
progress
progress.
means there's no such thing as perfection. We can
This,
always improve. We can always grow.
and progress. Every step we take is progress, and every step just takes us further. But the journey never finishes. It becomes better. It becomes easier. You move from. I think you move from a stage where you're trying to overcome all the things about yourself and your life that you don't like. You're trying to heal past hurts, reconcile yourself to changing your behavior patterns, and then you move into abundance. But you're still working in abundance, generating more and more and more.
Yeah, I just had an epiphany just now. And I'm like, we've been talking about narcissism. We've been talking about fulfillment, abundance. And I never thought about it in this frame of mind. But just now I just realized, like, wait a minute, it must suck to live narcissistic. And, and,
Yes.
and go with me on this because I'm like, wait a minute, if you think that you're already perfect and that everything is already perfect, everybody else can't keep up with you, that's a pretty actually boring life. Because if you've already psychologically connected to a point where you think you know everything and that everything you do is right, then what the hell else do you have in life? There's no growth. There's no
Yeah,
progress. And I never thought
absolutely.
about it until just now. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, look at where my husband's trigger came from. Can you help me look at why I'm so unhappy?
Yeah.
You know?
He didn't
So
realize it.
yeah.
He's like, wait a
So
minute, I thought everything was awesome. Why am I so unhappy? Like, oh, everything is awesome, but I'm clearly not happy.
something I do want to say that's really important to anyone else who's dealing with narcissism.
Oh, yes. Yeah, please.
It's different for me. Okay, I know how to handle this. My self-worth, my self-confidence, everything is through the roof. I stand my ground. I've got incredible barriers and boundaries and protection mechanisms that are there
But
automatically
you
for me.
developed that over time.
I've developed that.
Yeah.
So trying to help, like living with my husband, having to come back, it's not easy, but it's much easier than it was. He has had to temper his behaviors enormously, simply because I don't allow it, because there's things he just can't do, he just can't get away with anymore. But if you're not in that situation, for someone who is still in that diminished, controlled, that's incredibly difficult. What I'm doing, working through this with my husband, is not what I encourage most people to do. Certainly not on their own. Only do it with the support of someone else. And if you and he are doing the work, and if he's not doing the work, then do the work on yourself so you can move on to something else. My situation is not what I would encourage people to do. And I'm making that absolutely clear. I think I'm in a position where I can handle it. It's fine for me. And again, it's not what we chose. It goes back to what you're saying about Debbie being coronavirus has caused me to come back to this abusive, emotionally abusive situation that I had left.
But you're prepared for it.
I'm prepared for it. And it's so much better even than when I went away. I went away for 7 weeks. It was meant to be for 5 months. And it is so much better. But I think what's made it better is that I came back, and I was, even in that time, I was different. And what I will and won't allow is so crystal clear. And the boundaries are so high that it has to be different. That's it. But yeah, please don't try and copy
I love
me.
that clarification. And thank you for being so honest, because you are correct. Like, even before we had this show, I knew that you could tell you built up some resiliency. You've been through a few war stories. But to your point, okay, you've got the experience now. You've got some confidence that you know you can control, hopefully continually control the situation. But that doesn't mean people like Debbie and our Free Debbie project and other people out there are ready for that. But don't get overly confident.
No, and I've become the person who can do that. That's part of my journey. That's who I've become, as well as my professional knowledge and training. I can spot manipulation and gaslighting and the second, and he only has to get a few words out of his mouth that might be going down that route, and I'm onto
trigger. You're ready to go.
Absolutely.
Like, I got you.
Absolutely. Don't even think about saying what I know you're going to say, because don't even go there.
I can say, good for you. I'm impressed, seriously, honestly impressed that you have built up that resiliency and the confidence to recognize that and identify that and not be taken advantage by that. Because I'm glad you're overly confident in what you just said, and reminding our listeners, like, just because you have achieved that does not mean everybody else is ready for that. Guys, protect yourself. Even my friend Debbie, like, she's not going to stay in that situation. No.
Yeah. So
she had to get out.
Think that's important. I'm not saying that you can't do it. Of course you can do it. I've done it. And the other important thing is I actually have a really good blog about this on my website. We get so taken in by people who say they are going to change. And we just kind of leave it at that and expect that they're going to change. And I wrote a blog recently. I think it's 6.
Can a narcissist really change?
No. Which one is it? There's something about... I'll just put my glasses
or
on.
This one here is 5-step checklist for when an abuser promises.
That I think is really, really useful.
So that aired March 14th, 2020.
And it's something you must put in place when you're with someone who says they will change. You can't just leave that go. You can't just hope that it's going to happen. There are things that you have to do. You have to
identify it. You have to catalog it, confirm that the changes are happening.
Yeah. And just make sure they do. It's like if someone says they are going to change, okay, how are you doing it? How are you going to do this personal work? Who is going to help you? What are we looking for? What's your motivation? What's your reason? What's the outcome that you need? What do I need? There are so many things that I
love your clarification here. Motivation. Check why the person wants to change. I do this in business. I will not bring on a client unless they have given me, I ask them, like, guys, if you never thought about it before, I'm going to hold you accountable now. What is your why behind why you're going through all of this? Because guess what? Launching a business or a brand is hard work. Just like changing yourself and transforming yourself for somebody other and trying to defeat and overcome your negative narcissistic traits, not easy. It's a commitment. But here's how I justify it, whether it's nutrition, diet, again, health, business, lifestyle. Sarah, you'll appreciate this, right? Unless your why is so bulletproof that you're not ready. Like, you have to bulletproof that why, because this is going to get hard. And if you've got an easy way out, it's not going to work.
Yeah, and when we're talking about what we were talking about, motivation, because people will say in the moment they don't want you to leave. And they probably don't want you to leave because that would be in your best interest. They're not thinking about you. They're thinking
Think about
about
themselves.
themselves.
Yeah.
They're thinking, oh, I don't want this person to leave.
And they'll see it as a failure in their life, not your life. And they're like, wait a minute, I'm failing because they're leaving me. And that's going to disrupt their perfection.
Yeah. And some people don't want you to leave because they're addicted to the control. If you leave, they've lost control. True. And it has nothing to do with love. It's all about attachment, which is a whole other thing. But yeah, so this I'm glad you brought that up. This whole thing, when you ask someone, what's your motivation? Your motivation is, I don't want you to leave. Okay, if you don't want me to leave, then what I need ongoing is this acceptable to you? Is this what you want for me, for us? And yes or no. Okay, if yes, what are we going to do about it? How are we going to make sure that this is where we get to? Do you see, it's very easy for people to, oh, don't do that, I'll change.
Yeah.
And people go, okay, great, fine. Because it saves leaving your home, your friends, your environment, your dog, your kids. It's like me. What people say to me, oh, why are you doing so much work with him? Why should I don't want to leave my home, my dog, my kids, my environment, my friends.
And if he's willing to recognize it and awaken himself to it, that's a step in the right direction.
And because when we leave a person, we don't just leave the person. There's so much that goes with that, especially when you get to like my age.
And maybe he needs you to transform him and awaken him. That's what I'm hearing and seeing.
I'm not going to be responsible for that. He has to be responsible for that. Yeah. But I can support him in that. But there is only so much. There is only so much time that I will give it. You know, I had left for 5 months and I left for 7 months last year.
Right.
So, you know,
he either wants to change or he doesn't.
Absolutely.
It's like me, full circle back to me and my story of my wife. Right? It's like she never would have agreed to redate me, let alone accept my engagement and then obviously marry me unless she has seen the fact that I want to put the work in.
Yes.
So, I mean, listen, I've had a blast here today, Sarah. I mean, admittedly, in 3 minutes I have to get ready for the show. I'm glad, other than the quick technical difficulty, you shared some powerful words, some powerful truth today. Thank you. This is why I love podcasting. I'm connecting with people from all over the world and people like you who care this much and want to put the word out there. But here's one thing I do ask. My guest co-host, I asked him to close out the show. Now, technically, you already threw out a pretty good, strong point there at the end, like wanting to clarify these certain things. But this is something new that I've transformed over the past 3 to 4 years. And now I used to ask for final words, but now I ask for really of a legacy message, right? Like, okay, like it doesn't have to be something amazing, but it's like, okay, well, why are you doing all this, right? Like, what is the all-encompassing message? And maybe it becomes a legacy message behind why you're getting on podcasts, why you're talking about all this. What would you like to close this out with?
Because I think it's important for people to understand that they are products of their childhood, but that they don't have to be. Who you were taught you were, does not have to define you.
Strong points.
And your past isn't your fault, but your future is in your hands.
Lovely. Yes. See, this is why I ask these questions. I love how you guys close out the show. It makes my life so much easier. Well, listen, hang tight. I'm gonna give you a proper goodbye off the air. Ladies and gentlemen, again, if you've been inspired at all, motivated, as we talked about just now, motivation and why, please go to SallyG.com. Check her out. She's in a different time zone. So obviously when you schedule with her, be flexible if you're here in the USA. To be fair, ladies and gentlemen, I never said this before, Australia is my second most downloaded country off this podcast. So it's USA first, then Australia, and then UK, and then European countries. So there's a quick little fun segue. But anyway, check them out. Check her out. Check her programs out. Check her new upcoming podcast out. Real quick, sorry, Sarah, I'm going to interrupt my closeout. Do you have a name for the new show?
Yeah, I've called it Becoming the Light from the Shadows of Abuse.
Oh, all right. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. You just got a sneak peek. So when we air this show, that means you have to go get on iTunes, get on any of your podcast apps, like, follow, subscribe, do all of it, because this woman has an amazing story to share, and I have a feeling this new podcast is going to be amazing. I can't wait to hear more. So again, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for hanging with us on I don't even know what day it is. It's a Friday. It's a Friday night for me. It's a Saturday for her.
Yeah.
Other sides of the world. So again, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in. Again, SallyG.com. Check her out. Talk to you guys again soon. Remember, we are here to fuel your health, your business, and your lifestyle. And I feel like she truly gave us a lot of nuggets to balance all three of those domains. So thanks for tuning in. And we will talk to you guys again soon. Later.